Hello everybody. In previous videos we've spent a lot of time creating bouncing balls. To do so we needed to animate primarily these properties here, mostly the translate. You may have done some with rotation and scale as well. But the thing to keep in mind is that in Maya, if it's something that can change over time, then you can probably animate it. So we're going to take a look at a very quick example of what I mean by that. This time we're not going to be animating any of these properties here. In fact, we're not even going to be animating this sphere. We're going to be animating the material that we apply to the sphere. So I'm going to go to my Hypershade and I am going to make a Lambert. I'll apply my Lambert to the sphere. And let's go ahead and adjust the color of this Lambert. We'll make it red. Now, with my Lambert selected here, you can see that there are a lot of different properties here. We have the color, and we've got a slider for that color. In addition, we can select different colors from our color wheel. We can adjust the saturation of these colors. We can adjust the value of these colors. Basically, all of these different parameters, if they can change over time, then they can be animated. So let's see what we can do with that. Right now we have the color and it is set to red. I'm going to right click on color and I'm going to set a key. I'll go 1 second later on frame 24 and let's go ahead and make this turn into yellow. We'll go ahead and key that, set key. And then we'll go to frame 48 and we'll change it to green now. Go ahead and key it again. And we can just continue. Let's go ahead and see what our animation looks like. So if I play it, you'll see that it changes to all of those different colors and it happens over time. Let's check this out in the graph editor. So let's see, I'm going to open up my graph editor here. We'll just switch this over to the perspective view and we'll switch this panel over here to the graph editor. Important to note, I have the material selected right now. If I were to select the sphere itself, we're not going to see any animation on it because we haven't animated the sphere. Remember, we are animating the material. So I'll go back to my Hypershade, select the material because I have the material selected. We have its animation keys here. And you'll notice that there is a red or color R value, color G value, and color B value. These are the three properties being animated in this animation here. So let's go ahead and select those three channels. You can see what they're doing here. And just like you can with the bouncing ball examples that we did earlier, we can adjust these animation curves. Notice that if I select these animation curves and I click on the stepped button, we will not get that nice transition from color to color. It'll just instantly change. Here, let's play the animation and see what happens. And if we flatten out those tangents once again, now we'll get that nice gradation in between where it'll shift from red to orange to yellow and then move towards the greens and so on. Now we'll go ahead and give this one more color. We'll go to perhaps frame 96. I'll click on the color swatch. This time, instead of selecting one of these colors, maybe we'll try just using our color wheel here and do something a little bit different. Maybe we'll go back towards the reds, but we'll choose this red instead. We can desaturate it. We can change its value, and then we can key that. And once again, it's going to then interpolate from this cyan color to that reddish color that we created. Now I'm going to get rid of this animation on the color simply by breaking the connection here. We'll go ahead and make it red again. So you'll see that it is no longer animated because we'll take a look at some of these other properties, such as transparency. Let's go ahead and we'll have it be visible for, well, before I do that, let me show you something. I'm going to go to my channel box. I'm going to select this sphere, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to frame 12, and I'm going to key the visibility on the sphere itself, and then I'm going to go to frame 36, and I'm going to turn off the visibility so that the sphere is no longer visible, and we'll have it be off for, let's say we'll go maybe to frame 48, key it again, and then we'll go to frame 72 where we'll turn it back on again. So remember, this time I actually am animating the sphere. Let's go ahead and play it and see what happens. And what you'll notice is that there is no interpolation happening. In other words, the sphere is either on or it's off. Its visibility is on or off. That is how visibility works. That's how this channel works. It's either on or it's off. Now we could come in here and select that channel in our graph editor, and we could flatten out those tangents. And you'll see now we have some slow out, some slow in, but it's not going to work like you think it's going to work. It's still either going to be just on or off. And if we play it, we'll see that in fact, that's what we get. There is no in between. There's no, even though we're right here in the middle between these keys where it's off, where it's a value of 0, and here where it's a value of 1, where it's on, if we're right in the middle, you'll notice that it's just entirely on. If we just go back one frame, it's off. So that's an important distinction to understand about visibility. Visibility is either on or it's off. I'm going to get rid of that animation by cutting it, and I'm going to return to the material because here we can do a little bit more with it. Open up my graph editor. Sorry, open up the attribute editor rather. And here we'll do a similar animation. Once again, I'll go to frame 12 and I will key the visibility, sorry, the transparency. Keying the transparency this time. We'll go again to frame 36 and we'll just bring that down like this. We'll go ahead and key it. Once again, we'll go to frame 48, key it again. And we'll go back to 72, just like in the other example, and we'll make it more opaque again. Set that key, and now we'll play it. And here you see we actually do get some nice in-between states, where if I go back to that frame 60 like we were at before, where it had to, when using visibility on the sphere, choose to either be on or off, here on frame 60 it's about halfway. In fact, you can see here that this is halfway in between being entirely opaque and entirely transparent. So that's one of the benefits of being able to animate transparency. Now we're not going to get into all these different properties of ambient and incandescence and all these other properties, but understand that these things can change over time, therefore they too can be animated. Before wrapping up this video, we'll try one more example with the materials. This is a little bit more advanced when it comes to materials. Let me go ahead and break that transparency there so that we're not animating that any longer. And we'll go back to color, but this time I'm not going to actually play with the color here. I'm going to go to this checkerboard, and I'm going to use one of these procedural textures here. Any of these could be animated because they all have different properties that can be changed over time, or at least most of them do. But we'll just take a look at ramp. That's a fun one to take a look at. And I'm going to add a couple more colors in here into my ramp. We'll go ahead and go with maybe those basic colors. Not that we have to, but for the purposes of this demonstration, these will work out really well. And let's see, we'll press 6 on our keyboard so that we actually see. We have to still, even though this is not an image texture, we still have to press 6 on our keyboard to actually see it applied to our mesh here. I'm not going to use linear here. I'm going to change it to none. That's going to give us these more solid lines rather than gradients. We'll just move these over a little like that. And what's interesting about this is that these properties also can be animated. We could animate these individual selected colors. But we also have all these other properties that we can animate. So, for instance, noise, the V wave, and the U wave. The U wave is not doing anything on this particular example. The noise frequency, all of these properties can be animated. Let's give that a try. So here we will. Which property shall we'll animate this V wave. We'll try that. So I'm going to go to the beginning of my timeline, and I'm going to right click, set key. We'll scrub to frame 120, and we'll just drag the V wave over here and key that. You can see that we've got the slow out and slow in. We'll go ahead and play this animation and see what happens. Now, one thing just to warn you about when it comes to animating some of these other things, some of these things that besides the translation, rotation, scale, visibility, is that remember that you have to actually select whatever the object is that's animated. So again, if we select this sphere, it is not currently animated. We won't see anything in the graph editor associated with it. If we are looking for the animation of this texture here, we need to actually select the material itself. And to do that, I'll just go to my Hypershade and select the material. When I do select the material, you'll notice that we have the animation curve here in the graph editor. If I open up, well, we have the graph editor open, so if I expand on its properties here, which it's not letting me do. Okay. Not sure why it's not letting me expand on that. But again, here is the actual property that is animated. We can see the animation curve here. Now, we're not seeing anything. Notice we're actually not seeing anything in the timeline here. I think maybe I need to go actually over here to the actual ramp and then select it. And we're still not seeing it. Not seeing it here in the timeline. So I'm not exactly sure why that is, but that's okay. We can see it in our graph editor. We can still adjust it in the graph editor itself. Let's take a look and see what it looks like as well in the dope sheet. You'll see here in the dope sheet that we can see it, and we can expand on the ramp here, and you'll actually see that it's the V wave that is animated. If we had other properties animated in here, we would see those as well. Anyway, I hope that this video has been interesting for you, and thank you for watching.